Lawyers of Reddit, what is the most unethical thing you have seen someone do for a lawsuit? And 1. I started out working for a commercial law firm advising companies on environmental compliance. We had a client who was a large oil and gas distributor which owned a contaminated site in a populated area. My boss advised the client to transfer ownership of the site to a newly incorporated limited liability company with no assets. That way, when the government ordered the site to be remediated, the client wouldn't be liable for the cleanup. I left not too long after that. For a year I worked for the most unethical attorney I have ever met. Here are my top 2 stories. He took on a client that was injured at work. He sent him to a doctor that he would refer to as a unpleasant lady. Since the attorney normally does defense work, the doctor came back saying the injury was clearly not work related. The attorney called the doctor to inform him that he represented the employee and not the employer in this case. The doctor then wrote a report that the injury was clearly work related. One afternoon the attorney's assistant ran into my room and said I need to go to the courthouse right now to defend the attorney in a traffic case. Attorney told me he had no run-ins with law enforcement before, had never been ticketed before, and would just like to get supervision. I go in front of the judge and present this information and I get him supervision. I go back to the office and curiosity got the best of me. I searched his criminal record. Yeah. Turns out he had another outstanding speeding ticket and you could see his mugshot for domestic violence. Oh, and he tried to fine me $5,000 for going to a doctor's appointment on my lunch break. Yup, at that point I literally walked out. Obligatory, not a lawyer, but my parents got caught up in a slimy lawyer's talons. Basically, they had carpet installed in their house in 2005, paid in cash, got a receipt, and went on with their lives. 7 years later, they get a letter from some law firm saying the company they'd had install their carpet never received payment and would press charges if they didn't pay up. My dad, being the paranoid guy he is, had kept the receipt and said he'd see them in court. He did some research, found out what the attorney can and can't do in this situation, and also found out that the attorney had been working with the flooring company for years, accusing paying customers of not paying and collecting excess money from them under threat of lawsuit. Fast forward to the court date. Dad shows up knowing his rights, with the receipt stating exactly how much he paid and when. Attorney has nothing except a copy of the invoice for my dad's payment that he leaves in his folder the whole time. Not only does the attorney break almost every rule of court possible, he completely slanders my dad, calling him sketchy looking and dishonest even though the receipt is literally right there in front of him. Insists that the receipt is fake despite having a copy of the invoice. Real shifty stuff. My dad lost that case. Before anyone had even left the courtroom, the attorney walked up to chat with the judge, who asked if they were still on for brunch tomorrow. Because it was a super small circuit, this dude had been able to buddy up to a judge to the extent he was allowed to do basically whatever he wanted and still win his cases. A year later my parents sued the attorney for misconduct and requested an out-of-circuit judge, who essentially told that slimy schmuck to sit the hell down and shut the hell up when he tried to pull something against the rules. They won that case. When I was working as a public defender in the Detroit State Court, I routinely saw cops lie about the existence of video recordings of an event. The law says they have to have the cams running when they make a stop. But in all the cases I saw, not a single cop was ever able to produce a video. Either the video had malfunctioned, been accidentally deleted after the event, or the camera was broken. It was a weird place to work. The cops very much viewed the defense lawyers and the legal process as their enemy. I'm sure there were a lot of unjust outcomes as a result. A friend of a friend woke up in a hospital. He has no idea what happened, but he was brought out of an induced coma from a bike wreck. The car he ended up under was owned by a lawyer. The lawyer and a cop forced the doctors to get the guy out of a coma long enough to sign a statement when no family was present. The lawyer never mentioned to the doctor that it was he who was driving and not a person he represented. The lawyer then went on to sue for damages on his car by the guy and his bicycle. Law student here. Opposing counsel, in an asbestos wrongful death matter, cropped and pasted a baby into descendant's family photo as part of evidence. It looked so fake, no one was even holding the baby. Opposing counsel's poor attempt to gain more sympathy from potential jury. Descendant's family got a nice settlement though. Lawyer for 12 years here, specializing in estates and trusts. My client was challenging the will her husband left behind, giving the wife and son an equal split of the sizable inheritance he left behind. The son used to have an opioid addiction, but had been in treatment and a program, and had been clean for over 5 years. My client hired a private investigator who befriended the son and pushed him to start using again, selling him a few pills on hidden camera. The wife ended up using the video to successfully convince the judge her husband was under the impression their son was clean when he wrote the will. But since the video showed he still had a serious drug problem, the will could be challenged and he couldn't be trusted with his inheritance. She got the entire estate, and the son ended up dying a few years later from an overdose. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe for daily Reddit madness.